Inside IT Automation, a ScriptRunner production.
Welcome everyone to a new exciting episode of Inside IT Automation. Today, it's my pleasure to have Doug Finke as my guest, 16-time Microsoft MVP, and I would say an overall AI expert consultant. So welcome, Doug.
Thank you, Heiko. Good to see you again. Good to be here.
Yes, looking forward to that because the last time we spoke here on the podcast is, I think, almost a year ago or something. And I guess a few things happened since then. So looking forward to go through all this different stuff. And also, I think since we talked, obviously everybody talked about, generative AI, but now we have AI agents, we have agentic AI, and maybe it's a good idea to just for at the beginning to kind of look at these three different things and what they do and how they're different. Maybe that could be maybe a good starting point. So maybe I start with what my thoughts are when I think about these three things. So for me, like when I think of generative AI, and I think it's even I think one of the terms I heard from you earlier on is like this. Think of it as a smart intern, right? So you ask something, it comes back, it helps you creating text and images and concepts and all kinds of things that can help you in all kinds of different areas. But it's not really acting. It gives me, let's say, the recipe if I want to cook something, but that's it. And so the AI agent, I think of, okay, this is a more active role. I ask for book a hotel for me, for example, or something like this, or so it's like instead of just getting the recipe, I have a service that brings me the meal, for example, and then the agentic AI, which I think is the most interesting new development kind of for the future as well, is like combining all these things and having multiple agents with different knowledge and capabilities working together. And it's like if I'm having a company and I want to start a new product and I need marketing, I need sales, I need legal, I need development. And then these agents take care of all that. And ideally at the end, I have a product with everything I need with a marketing strategy and sales and maybe in an ideal scenario. So this is for me like how these three things are different. Well, what is your take on that? Would you say this is
awesome? I think those are three good takes. I think there's a little bit of there's a grounding in what it really can do. And so like the things like you mentioned, like doing hotel, book a hotel for me here and there, and let's say get me a table at a restaurant, right? Doable. On the consumer side, that's a little bit it can do that, but it's out of reach and it's slow. And we can talk about how Anthropic is handling it as well as what OpenAI is doing. And then the agentic workflow type stuff. Yeah. How can you set things up, have multiple agents? Again, at the consumer level, to have that actually do all those things is a little bit still far reaching. It's doable. There's demos of it, but I think it's still demoware. Now, just because that's the case, right? Just like back in the days when PowerShell first came out, would you write a trading system in PowerShell? No, but I can do a ton of things that make getting to a trading system a lot easier, better, deployable, consistent, so on. And that's how I start seeing AI, generative AI agents and agent workflows. And I can go deeper into what I think that those pieces are, if you want.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is of course a very interesting topic. And so when we had our last conversation, obviously, we also looked into your PSAI module, and I just checked this morning. So it has, I think, like 55,000 downloads already, which is a lot more than it was a few months ago,
Yep.
right?
Yep. And in fact, this is my third version with the PSAI. I did initially start it as PowerShell AI, and when it's all my stuff is around Azure OpenAI and OpenAI itself, but they've changed the APIs enough that I tore it down and rebuilt it, a third time, and then added the agentic capabilities into it. That early piece had almost 100,000 back in 23.
Wow.
So the new one went up, and now it's already got 55,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, this stuff is hot, and it's not just about PowerShell.
Yeah, absolutely. So this brings me to the next topic. Like, as I think we talked last August or something. A lot of things happen. So what are the let's say the big changes and highlights that you see that happened the last couple of months?
Well, okay. Yeah, I mean, I took about a bunch of notes from like last July, but so there's been a ton of money invested in AI from all different companies and governments. And in fact, I think the EU finally said, we're going to invest 200 billion, make it up to 200 billion euros. I think they said they're going to put into it.
Yeah, finally, they want to do something too. Yeah.
I won't get into the regulations and then, and the politics of it. I mean, everybody has their opinion. It's good to be skeptical. If you get too skeptical, you're going to be too late to the game, in my opinion. But, I'm not here to convince you that AI is the future. It's my future. I don't know how many people are going to come along. But some of the things. So basically, OpenAI, they still are the Rosetta Stone, right? Even Elon Musk with XAI is working on and produced Grok 3 this week, which is a competition to a direct competitor to OpenAI. So over last year, in December, OpenAI did something called Shipmas, right? And what they did is they did 12 days of Shipmas, and they did 12 live streams over 12 days, work days, and they showed 12 new concepts that they produced. One of them was their newest version of what they call their reasoning model. They had O1, now they have O3 Mini. And that is they've tweaked that, and that's what's now doing their deep research agent, right? So speaking about agents there. So that's kind of becoming the Rosetta Stone. There's lots of opinions about it. Of course, everybody's like, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. And a lot of people say it's crap. So, you really got to get into the meat if you want to figure out, is this something that works for me? So there's tons of money. Microsoft has been dropping more and more tools in terms of just Copilot, even in just the Visual Studio Code space. So helping developers become more productive. And once again, there's lots of opinions about that. Lots of people say LLMs and AI is a bunch of crap. It's not good at anything. And then a bunch of us are out there going, this thing makes me unbelievably productive, and I can experiment and try things.
To this topic, maybe, did you also take a look at Cursor? Because I met a couple of people who said, I will never ever go back to anything else because it's so much fun and it's so fast, and they are very happy with Cursor. I never saw it, but did you have a chance to look at it?
Great question. And, we mentioned earlier about our age. So when I hear that kind of stuff, it riles me up. The pace at which, and I'll get to Cursor AI in a sec, the pace at which AI is changing, there are people that get on social media and they go, I'm using Claude, Sonnet, blah, blah, blah. It's the greatest LLM. I can do this and this and this. And then I get in there and I get a little bit of annoying, hard to believe. And I say things like, have you seen the pace of AI? Every 2 weeks at the most, there's a new state-of-the-art LLM, right? And Cursor AI, I worked with it. I liked it. It moved the cheese around inside of Visual Studio Code. I've played with Kleinbot. I've played with Continue. I've played with WebSurf. I've played with Aider, which is more of a command line thing. Mm-hmm. They're all wrappers on top of LLMs. Copilot versus Windsurf versus Cursor AI. They have all their. It's like which editor are you going to use? Are you going to use PyCharm from JetBrains? Are you going to use JetRider? Are you going to use Visual Studio Code? Are you going to use Eclipse? Are you going to use Emacs, NeoVim? Yeah, you're going to have people with a mindset of like, this is what I come from, a different mindset, which I'm not saying is better. I like, if Cursor AI tomorrow comes up with a feature that is unbelievable, I'm going to wait a week and see if Microsoft reproduces it. If Copilot comes up with some unbelievable feature, I'm going to wait and see if Cursor AI picks it up and then takes it to the next step. This is an amazing time for us in the developer consumer space, because this competition is going to be best for us. So people who settle on, I'm only going to use Cursor, well, I think you're missing the game. Yes, if it's working for you, continue, but don't close your mind to other opportunities.
Absolutely. I think I saw an interview yesterday with some CEO. I forgot the name of the company, but he said, because he was asked like, okay, it's shifting so fast, and he tried to make an analogy about, okay, you're driving a Toyota, and now you have a Ferrari engine, or you have a BMW engine, but you're still driving, let's say, so like the use case, that's the use case, and you're just having insight of what you're doing. You're changing always, or you're using the technology that fits to what you want to achieve, right?
Absolutely correct. This is not software development of 10 years ago or last century, where it's like, hey, I'm using version 2.0 of blah, blah. Oh, did you see they came out with 2.5 in this? That mindset is gone. This is AI speed. And it's tough because people want to come and go, well, what do I do? How do I learn it? Which one do I pick a tool? And what's really cool about Cursor AI that I liked is that they fit right into the Visual Studio Code space, right? So unfortunately, they moved some of the cheese for me. So I was like, I need to have those keystrokes, and I'm not going to set them up again. So I uninstalled the product. But they're all wrappers on top of large language models. And they have special prompts, and they do hybrid coding so you can get certain kinds of experiences. But I'm from GPT 3.0, right? I'm back from when I had Monad and I didn't have ISE. I didn't have ICE. I used Notepad, or I used my favorite editor, TextPad and Sublime at the time, to write my code, go to the console and run it. I don't mind. I can make that switch. But if you're tied in like, oh, I have to have that button here, I have to have that keystroke to do this. Okay, that has nothing to do with AI. That has all to do. It's habits, and habits are tough to break. I agree with you guys. I agree. It's interesting you picked Ferraris and BMWs, but that's cool.
Could be anything else, right?
That's the an AI first mindset is beyond the tools. Pick your tools now that you need to get your job done and get productive, whatever that's going to be. But don't lock into a particular large language model. I don't think. Or a particular IDE. We may even see, and I think I had it on my slide, by the end of this year, we may see a new IDE from somewhere that's not even an IDE that we've ever been used to using, because it's going to really leverage. So that's my flow.
By the way, do you want to share
sure.
a slide, or
do you want to? I can either. Let me share. Let me share a slide. I think this is probably most important. So to your point, can you see that? Is it still sharing?
I just brought it into the stream here. Yeah.
Cool. Because I can't see yours, but anyway. So to your point, Cursor, Windsurf, Copilot, Command Line. Which LLM do you use? So where I'm landing and is, what are the principles that you need to understand about AI and whatnot? And it comes down to three pieces: context, model, and prompt. So if you understanding the models are important, but this one may be better at writing prose, this one may be better writing at readmes, this may be better at coding, and almost all the environments allow you to switch between models, right? So understanding the model is important, but as important is the context. And this goes across any product. It goes across Copilot, Cursor AI, Continue, using this stuff up in Azure, OpenAI, so Anthropic, blah, blah, blah. So understanding their models, being able to give them enough context, but not too much context. So it's the Goldilocks principle. And becomes, you got to work with this stuff to really get an intuitive sense of how much context. This thing may be able to take 1 million tokens. Okay, well, that's a few hundred PDFs. But I'm not going to give a few hundred PDFs and think that the model's going to figure out everything that I want. So being able to figure out context is important. And then it comes down to prompt engineering. How do I write a prompt, right? Everybody wants to be short and sweet. Like, well, I'm just going to write 10 words to describe what I want. And then AI is going to magically, through science fiction, give me what I want. No, you might have to go through a bunch of iterations, a conversation to generate what you need. But understanding your context, your model, and prompt is key to being able to get your job done and interact with this new stuff called AI. And this will get better. It will get easier. Compared to 3.0, we used to have to write a few paragraphs to get what we wanted done. And we'd have to intermix JSON formats to describe how we want the output. That's much easier. Working with them in the IDEs today, doing prompting is you can do less and get more out of it. But if you really want to make this sing, you really have to know how to do your prompts and which models to choose from. So that's my one slide.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. Very, very cool. Because I mean, the nice thing is about, I mean, once you know how to prompt, it's actually more or less, it doesn't matter if you're working with Gemini or ChatGPT or DeepSeek or whatever, right?
Exactly. And you bring up DeepSeek as well. And you got to remember, at this point in time, we're moving so fast. And then what happens is DeepSeek comes out or Grok 3 comes out and everybody piles on, right? And everybody goes, oh my God, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. And here's what's good. And it's like, Grok's been out 3 days and I've seen like 400 articles on it. Like, you don't know anything about what Grok can do. Yeah. You know the top level stuff. But ultimately, if you want to go and play with Grok, if you understand context, model, and prompt, you can go in and do things with it and start to say, oh, I see this is a little better. Are you going to switch your entire architecture over to it? That comes to a discussion about what they call evals. Do I have a suite of prompts that I know what my expected values are so that I can actually throw those prompts at a new model, see what the results are so I can go, oh, okay, it's 10% better here or 15% better, or it does worse on this. And people aren't thinking like that. So it's, there's a lot more to this than just, AI magically is going to take me to the promised land.
And I think it's just great for people who are curious and just want to try to find out what's happening. Just like me on a different level, because this morning, the first time I used Grok to create an image or images, and they were the most, with people in it, were the most realistic ones I were ever able to create. Because before that, I used, I'm still using, but with DALL-E, for example. But so that's
absolutely
so I'm gonna stick with this maybe until I realize now I can do it with something else, right? So
that is a key point. Get into a chat GPT. There are a lot of the free tools are amazing, right? You can actually use these reasoning models for free. You can't use it to do, if you really like what you're doing, it'll stop you at 50 uses or 20 uses, but you pick a domain that whether it's music or visuals or coding, or maybe you write science fiction or you want to write an article, and then actually interact with it, whether it's Grok or OpenAI or Anthropic, and see what the responses are and learn how to you're talking to a PhD level intern, okay? And remember, when a PhD comes out, they're good at one thing. So these LLMs are good at one thing across multiple disciplines, right? But they still you need to steer them in the right direction. You need to be able to articulate what you want, right? You can't go, hey, teach me about programming, or teach me about PowerShell. It'll come back with some stuff, but if you can get more specific, right, it will actually be able to give you better and say, hey, here's you go. Give me 5 books on this topic. Give me 3 articles, and they can all do web search. So, but that's how, and then you can start getting the aha moments of what does this AI do? And then you go, oh, I can put this for free with Copilot into an IDE, or use Cursor AI, or I can use one of the other ones. And then, pick your poison.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of poison to choose from.
it's not getting any less, right? It's
And by the end of this year, I mean, you've got to weigh the hype, both negative and positive. You got, again, be skeptical, but not to the point that you don't try this stuff out. But the other side of it is, you get all the CEOs of these companies going, "We're going to have," Sam Altman out of OpenAI says they believe they're going to have more than a mid-level coders capability by the end of this year. And a lot of people think that's on target. A lot of people think that's an understatement. And some people are like, "Nah, this LLM stuff is nonsense." But what we're seeing with, like, people talk about Code AI. Did I get it right? I always get the names wrong. But like Copilot and agents, you can see that this is starting to happen in a different way. And we're going to have O4 by the end of the year. We're going to have different kind of capabilities from the LLMs, like deep research built in, and web search capabilities where it can do real-time understanding. It's going to be a whole different game. And if you don't know how to start interacting and chatting with this thing and monitoring and understand, it's going to be one mass confusion. And if you type something wrong, you're going to send the LLM, you're going to send that agent off. It's going to come back with a bunch of stuff. And you're going to go, "I'm not wading through this crap. This makes no sense." But if you begin to know how to learn how to articulate, and what we as software developers, when was the last time as a software developer did we sit down and go, "Let me write up a spec so I understand what I'm going to do"? No, we sit down and we open up the editor and we start banging out code. So this is a fundamental shift.
Yeah.
And now we're going from that kind of stuff to what we're calling vibe coding, right? Where you can actually type with the, "Hey, I think I want to have this. Oh, that looks interesting. Here, switch this, try that. Put a little, I need this over here. Don't use that data structure. Try this data structure." And then and it's going to make mistakes and whatnot. And how are you going to catch it? And write a unit test from that code so I can keep testing. So it's just a completely different. And I don't, it's nothing to be scared about. It's something to learn. We weren't afraid of IntelliSense. We weren't afraid of tab completion. But it's but you had to learn that habit of how to use it.
Yeah, absolutely. And this kind of approach that you just mentioned could even mean that I maybe would even become a developer, so to speak, because if I can describe what I want, then I have AI that can deliver something for me. Right?
And that goes back to when you started talking about agents and agentic workflows. So what's really interesting about agentic workflows, it's not a single agent, right? And it's not the same LLM. So if you start with an O3, what you do is you're proposing and you're trying to describe what you need to get done. And it goes off and it makes a plan. Then it takes that plan and gives it to a faster, less accurate model to implement the code. And this is stuff that's been researched for the last year and a half by places like Hugging Face and other larger corporations. And if you stay up on the research, which is really difficult, it's like a fire hose, but you can start seeing who's picking what things out of the research and applying it. But that technique, you still have to be able to communicate what you want, but it figures out the plan and then it implements what you're doing. And those things are getting bigger and better and more capable. So it's fascinating stuff.
Yeah, and that's the interesting part, right? So, and how did this influence what you did with your PSAI module?
Well, it completely influences is because what I did was I ported the OpenAI Python SDK. Right. So I looked at the SDK and it's basically all REST calls, right? So you're calling into the back end. So that's two things happen there. One is by following OpenAI, they set the bar. So now XAI, Google, Gemini, and Meta, they all set up. We have to open our stuff to all API calls. So, I don't know how many PowerShell folks know how to do that, but REST APIs are like, it's not rocket science, right? And I'm just calling it here. Here's my prompt, get some results. So what OpenAI did early on is they created something called function calling. So I was like, wow, what is that? So I started implementing that. And then I came up with a tool where I can take any PowerShell function and convert it into the JSON that's needed by the AI so it knows what function to call. And then I execute that result. Okay. Maybe in the next one, we can show you some demos of that. Yeah. Now, when you get to that part, that's where you have agents. Why? Here's my simple definition of an agent. If any object or function that has access to an LLM, that's an agent. because you can give it a whole set. If I can give it the JSON around, here's 10 functions I want to be that you can use. Read a CSV, export a CSV, create a file, right? And I can give you I can take that, the name of the functions and the parameters, just give that to the AI, right, as a prompt. And then I say, read this file and make a backup. It knows how to come back and say, oh, you need to call this tool with this parameter. You need to call this tool with that parameter. And I can just sit there in a loop and call those functions. And now I have something has an emergent behavior of thinking.
Yeah,
Blows my mind.
Yeah. This is a good way of thinking about it, because that opens up all the possibilities, right? And it makes you think about, wow, if this is possible,
Let me just drop another story on you. And I know we have to begin to end.
No, it's all good. We still have time.
You all good?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, sure.
This stuff won't make it to the actual end of the video, but we'll see. So back 100 years ago, I've worked on Wall Street forever. And some of the companies I worked at, we were fortunate enough, they would invite people from Wall Street up to MIT, right, to see the latest and greatest stuff. And then there was this, one of the professors came out and talked to us about robotics. And, AI was around 100 years ago, right? It's been around since the 40s and the 50s. I think Alan Turing actually talked about AI without calling it AI. And I don't know if everybody knows who Alan Turing is, but that's another story. So up at MIT, they said, well, what we did was we decided we were going to make an ant. We wanted to make a robotic ant, right? The insect. Mm-hmm. Not my mother's sister. So anyway, the bad jokes today. So they decided to make an ant. And what they did was they gave the ant a brain. They put 8 legs on it. They gave the ant a brain. And they were like, okay, figure out what you're doing. Figure out the terrain. Are you walking upstairs or over rocks and all that kind of stuff? And it really didn't function. It did some stuff, but it ran into lots and lots of issues. Then that caused them to rethink it. And they came up with this other idea. And what they did is they put the intelligence in the leg. And all the leg they gave the thing was, if you're up as a leg, go down. If you're forward, go back. If you're back, go forward. Right? Okay. That was it. And then they put 8 of those things on the body. The thing was walking upstairs and over rocks. So now for some reason, that always amazed me. Like, wow, that's a different way of thinking of solving a problem. So when I see agents, I think of agents like that. I don't need to write this monolithic PowerShell script that's going to go out and do 5,000 VMs and set to this and do that and or whatever else, copy files or set these things up. I want an agent that can read a file. I want a part of that agent to be either a separate one or combined and write a file, right? I want to be able to list the directories. Now, if I put that together, is that enough to start getting this really interesting effects like import the Excel file and then save it as CSV? Or how complicated can I get? And it's amazing how far you go. Now, to take that there's a paper blog post by Anthropic. And out there right now, there's a lot of different agent workflows. There's things like LangChain, Crew AI, AutoGen, and Semantic Kernel from Microsoft. Great tools, very important. Anthropic came up and said, 80-20 rule. You may not need any of those. They're really great, but as soon as you started getting into it, you have all these other side effects and this complexity that you have to manage that you may not need for what you're trying to get done. Keep the agents simple. And they came up with a bunch of different ones. I'm like, I've implemented every one of those in PowerShell. It's once you have the framework, it doesn't matter the programming language. You have a REST API. You have access to an LLM. So these patterns are doable. And so I go, wow, I'm excited. This is, and where did they get their stuff from Anthropic? They got it from OpenAI. Why is that? Not only are they watching them, everybody that started that company are ex-researchers from OpenAI. So now when I see Grok come online, Elon Musk's a genius. He said, copy everything OpenAI is doing and make it 20% better. Mm-hmm. That's why you get better images. Mm-hmm. So now now we're going to see how Sam Altman responds. Yeah, it's a fascinating process.
Yeah, and it's kind of what do you think about the DeepSeek story where they where they think they used all the data from ChatGPT and then built an even better model?
Yeah, so that's that's all the clickbait news. So did they steal it? Yeah. Is it better? How much better can it be? Did they do it faster and cheaper? In certain ways, but it's what's funny is that in all the papers that they talk about it, they don't talk how much they invested in the NVIDIA H100 GPUs, which cost millions and millions and billions of dollars. Oh, how come you left that out of the calculation? So there's a lot of discussion around how that came out, why it came out. It caused NVIDIA to lose $500 billion in value that they're recovering from. So what was your question? So how do I? Yeah. So, but this is, AI is going to be a multi-trillion-dollar business. It already is becoming that. So this kind of stuff is going to go on again and again and again. And now Microsoft just announced their latest quantum leap breakthrough, right? Their new chip, and how that's going to create synthetic data for AIs. So it's just totally.
That's why they call it the AI war, right? I mean, this is
the AI race, and if you want to play in it, this is going to affect military. Do you know the name of the company called Anduril? It's an American company, Anduril.
No.
It was started and created by the guy who created HoloLens. I take that back. What was the one? Oculus. He created Oculus and Oculus Rift at Meta, and then he dropped out and he created a military company that gets tons of stuff. So he's working with AI to do his stuff because all of the military pieces are going to use AI. Yeah. That's what you want in your drones, right? That's what you want if you're going to put people on the ground. They want to have AI navigational capabilities on every level. And what's weird is that they're doing it there, but somehow we can't figure out how to write PowerShell scripts using AI. I don't understand that.
So maybe that, but a perfect segue maybe to even maybe we want to show a few things that now are possible with your modules.
Let's do that.
So let me just bring in the screen again into the stream here.
So one of the things. So I'm going to show you some pieces, but if you download, you can do a pound install. I'm sorry, you can do an install -module on PSAI. What I'm going to show you is just like the tip of the iceberg, and the entire SDK has just got tons and tons of stuff. But because of the stuff that was built, then I was able to do abstractions on top of it. And so the first abstraction is I can do something like Q, what is my IP, right? Let it spin up, and hopefully AI is going to be happy today. And I give you some visuals. So you type in so this is right. So I know the model. The model I'm using is GPT-4o Mini for this. That can be changed. And you type in, here's your prompt. So we have the model and the prompt, and the context is nothing. It's just basically, I'm doing what they call a zero-shot prompt, which is whatever. And just so I was going to take that. That's going to be the context and the prompt. And it came back and said that quickly, well, here's how you can do that, right? Then I give you an option for next steps. You can either type a follow-up, right? Or you can press enter to copy that to the clipboard. So I can hit enter, tells me it got copied, then I can paste it and I can run it if I want to, right?
Okay, wow.
So let's do it now. This is not going to be a program piece I'm going to show you, like list the first 5 U.S. presidents. So this piece has memory. See, now I have this tune for being in. I have this tune to work with with PowerShell, which is also changeable. Let's try this. Maybe it's gonna. Okay. So first 5 U.S. presidents. It comes back with a list. Now I'm going to follow up with a question, and I'm just going to say VP, term, party. Right? So it knows what I asked about presidents. So now it comes back and it gives me all those good points, right? Again, I can press enter, or I can give it another follow-up. I'm going to say in a table. Now, remember the in a table because that's a good prompt engineering trick. Now I'm going to type in a table, and what's cool is it knows to come back as a markdown table, right? How cool is that?
Amazing.
Now I'm going to press enter, and I've copied it. So now I just had a conversation. It remembered what I was talking about. I didn't have to remind it that I was talking about presidents. Got to my table, and then what I can do is I could put it into an editor, or I'm going to just paste it here for this sake, and then I'm going to pipe it into something I have called Glow, which I installed, and it renders the table for me in line. If I was inside of Visual Studio Code, which I'll bring up, let's get rid of that. Let's do this. And I can paste that here, and then I can do a Control KV, and I can now render that. So this is kind of how I work. I'm saying US presidents, but there's no reason I can't say Q, compare, bicep, and arm templates in a table. So I can do it as a one shot, or I can have a conversation. And in this case, I just did it as a one shot, and it's giving me the features of arm templates and bicep. Press enter, and let's see if I can get that to render. And now I have a little bit of a report talking about, oops, wrong one. But anyway, you get the idea, right?
Yeah. Awesome.
And I can go on and on and on.
Okay.
And inside of Copilot. So Copilot, again, my stuff wraps LLMs. Copilot wraps LLMs. Cursor AI wraps LLMs. On and on and on. And then it's about the magic sauce that you put around it. You make the hybrid code to make it do what I just showed you. Anyway, and then I have agents, but that'll be the next time.
Yeah. So besides the functionality, what's very obvious for me now, it's easier to read as well, because you added some visuals to the way that your module works, right? So that's really, this is also a helpful thing, of course.
So it looks more like you're interacting with ChatGPT, right? So now I just said capital of France, and then I just typed the word Madrid, and it came, or Spain, and it came back with Madrid, and we can add Iceland, and so you're just having a natural conversation back and forth. And then, yes, the visuals break up the agent responses, and it gives you the sense of, well, I can either continue with a follow-up or copy it to clipboard, or I can just Control C out of it. So, yeah, really cool stuff.
Awesome. Really great. All right. Cool. So I think this already shows a lot of cool possibilities here. So
I'm going to show one last one.
Yeah, please.
I'm going to say PowerShell function FN fib. This may not work because it's really small. Well, let's see if it comes back with a Fibonacci. And I'm done. Okay, so now it came back. That looks good to me as a recursive Fibonacci function in PowerShell. And then I can say something like, don't use recursion. And the cool part is, if I misspell things, because it's a text predictor, it'll figure things out. I'm not sure if that's how you spell recursion. And now it gave it to me in a version of a loop. So I don't have to worry about Stack Overflows.
Yeah.
So this is the kind of this. So now I understand my model. I've got my prompt. I gave it the context. The conversation is the context. And then I can then take this to Grok 3, OpenAI, GitHub, Cursor, Windsurf, and I could begin to test and say, well, which ones do I like and which ones? And maybe I'll have all of these environments on my machine, and I'll pick the right editor for the different kinds of tests I think it's better at. Cool.
This opens up a lot of amazing possibilities here. Yeah.
And the thing is, I'm just showing you how to generate code. When I show you how to use agents at some point in the PSAI, it brings LLMs and agentic workflows and agents into your PowerShell programs. So now you can actually make your PowerShell stuff respond to natural language and even more. So, and that's amazing. The next level of intent.
Yes. All right. So, I mean, this is I think this is the great cliffhanger now for the next for the next episode. We definitely have to do, because there are so many things I think we have to talk about.
And we didn't even go into how to use Copilot and how the special sauce that it provides. And then you can see, well, how does that compare to Cursor AI? But yeah, this world is just insane. And it's all going to change in a month.
Yeah.
Because the models are going to get better. The UXs are going to get better.
Yeah. 100%.
Cool.
I mean, we're in touch with a guy right now who's kind of he's a professor at Berkeley, and he talks about AI every Wednesday, and he told us, every Wednesday morning he has to update his material because that's the way how fast things change, right?
This Monday, Grok 3 came out, and I was looking at some stuff today, and I was like, oh my God, I got to put 5 of these things in and talk to Heiko about this stuff. But yeah, and you can easily get inundated about all that, and not all of it's important, and a lot of it you just have to let it wash over your brain. But yeah, the AI, and it's just going to be, we're only in February. We got like another week or so of February.
Yeah.
March is going to be off the hook. And the cool thing is, like, my AI stuff, it's written in such a way that I can just plug another model in. So if something gets better, I just swap in a new model. And it's just through -LLM OpenAI, -LLM Gemini. That's it. And then everything else works the same. That's the brilliance of what OpenAI brought to us, that it all sits on a server. So we can just access these models and this great AI capability, and your stuff keeps working. But if you're going to try to write a piece of code that's going to plug the gaps, like, oh, I think OpenAI should do this, that's when they start laying waste to all the venture capital firms and all the startups. It's like, oh, we're going to make a wrapper that does this better. And then they come up with a new thing in a month, and then their business has been toast.
Yeah.
So there's a different mindset of how to do all this, right? It's not how we used to do development.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember like 3 years ago when you had to have a plugin in ChatGPT to analyze PDFs, and then a few weeks later it just got built in, right?
So now I'm sure you've heard of RAG, retrieval augmented generation.
Mm-hmm.
I always get that name wrong. So basically, you take your PDFs, you convert it to an embedding format, and you put it in a vector database. And then when you have a query, if you have your AI query, it looks up the proper parts of like, you do a search first and say, oh, I think this PDF fits that. Take that text and give it to AI to figure out what to do. So Gemini, Google just dropped a new LLM with a bigger context window that can finally look at a number, PDFs with hundreds of pages, can put it together in less than 6 seconds. So RAG may be going bye-bye. And I retweeted that, and man, people got on my case. I'm like, dude, I'm just telling you what they came out with. You can go figure out what you. Yeah, but that's anyway.
Yeah, that's the speed. Right. Awesome. Great. So this was really, really already great. So we kind of did an update from the last call. We already saw some new stuff, and we definitely have to do at least one other episode to dive deeper into the other stuff like agents. That's looking forward to that. But awesome. but for now, thanks a lot, Doug, for taking the time. This was a lot of interesting input and information, and also things that I guess people can think about and get an idea how they should go along with what's happening in the AI space and how to make the best out of it and embrace it. Yeah.
Start looking into it. You don't want to get too far behind, but I will send you a postcard from the future if necessary.
Perfect. All right. Again, Doug, thanks a lot. See you next time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay.